And we start to separate from that, what we truly are, really at a very young age.
Oh, 100%. But that's it, right? Like, I mean, we can, dive into how society's kind of like set up to do that.
Yeah, and our sense of our ego and what protects us, we want to fit in, right? I mean, that sense of wanting to fit into whatever society or family or community that you're a part of. And we figure out these roles that keep us maybe safe in that environment, but they're not, and this is what I've learned in this process of unlearning, they're not truly who you are.
Exactly.
It was something that you set up to keep you safe and almost just accepted. And going on, you think that's what being loved is, but that's not truly what being loved is. Or loving yourself, allowing other people to love you. If you're not coming back to that sense of your highest self and seeking that, it's very hard to have a relationship with yourself or with anybody else.
Right, and kind of what you're saying is that's fear-based living, right? Like you set these parameters up of like, okay, this is what I have to do because this is what is expected of me from society.
Yes.
Right? And then all of a sudden you're living by that, but you're not living towards your highest truth. Like at that moment, sure. Like because we're constantly switching realities, changing timelines. Like, time basically for us it's real, but it's also an illusion because of the density that we're in, right? Like time, space, because we're in a physical density. It takes time to move our bodies across space, which means it takes time to do something. So, that's basically just kind of how, in a quick synopsis of like how time works for us.
Yeah. And you can get this much done in this day.
Exactly. Yeah. So once you kind of start to realize this and you start aligning yourself with like your highest truth, like so many things in your life just kind of start to fall into place. Like I've used myself kind of like as an example, right? Like I got an offer the other day to potentially transfer down to one of our other sister restaurants in San Clemente. Okay. Right? My girlfriend and I were kind of considering it. Like we could use a little change, It'd be like maybe a 6 to 8 month deal, just something different.
Yeah.
Within an hour, or by the end of the day, but within an hour, there were a lot of things that kind of like fell into place. It was like, if you guys want to do this, like silver platter, here you go. And then I find out the other restaurant group that I work for is opening a restaurant down there. And like they just like did another thing with like something, and I'm just like, what the heck? But that's just it, right? Yeah. Because we didn't close ourselves off and like, ooh, like I don't know if we can afford it, like I don't know if this is gonna work out. We're just like, all right, like this could be a cool thing, like let's look into it. Do we want to do it? Like it wasn't about there was no fear involved with it, right? So it was just, hey, like let's look into this. This sounds fun, And then all of a sudden it's like, if you guys want to do it, here you go.
Yeah.
Like, and we've got, we already have places to go look at if we want to, like tomorrow. Just like, wow, that was
And what
interesting.
And it is, and I've seen things in my own life work out like that, and it is that fear-based thinking and that frequency that you talk about, and I am fascinated by frequencies.
Our job, I think, I forget who said, maybe it was Jim Carrey. I think it was Jim Carrey, but it's like our job isn't to figure out how to get something or to do something. Our job is to open the door in our head and just let it come to us.
So true.
Because we don't know, like, how many times has something worked out exactly as you planned it? Very rarely.
Very rare.
As long as you're working towards that end goal and remaining open to, going with the flow, rolling with the punches, that kind of deal. The universe doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's going to get it to you the way that it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So you just have to trust. And this is where that idea of faith comes from in religion, right? Is that you just have to trust. Now, this is kind of a fun little bit, is don't ask the universe for something like, how is it? Like, I guess
Like specific?
be specific.
Okay.
But like, for example, I guess like prayer is an interesting one, right? Because, you know, like, yes, you're thankful for something, like, oh, like, thank you, God, for, you know, whatever.
Roof over my head.
Roof over my head,
Yeah.
this and that. Like, always be thankful. Like, that's a really good piece of it.
Huge.
But be careful of how you use your words, right? Because the universe is going to give you exactly what you ask for. So you're like, I need $1 million. No, it's not I need $1 million, right? Because that implies you don't have it. So that feeling, right? Emotions, energy in motion, right? Emotion.
Yes.
If you can find that feeling within yourself, and this is where meditation really starts to kick in, right? And there's a lot of good work from Dr. Dispenza on this, of like how to actually do it, and it's fascinating. I've done it, like, actually one of his seminars. It's amazing.
Okay.
But if you can sit in stillness and find that feeling and allow yourself to become immersed in it, you know, like, and a good practice is, you know, find one of your happiest memories, pull that from your database, and just sit there, relive that experience, right? Because there's only an eternal moment. Like we said, like, time is, you know, relative only to us in this density right now.
Yeah.
So if you pull that memory up, it's like it's happening right now.
You're
Your
in
body doesn't know the difference, right?
Yeah.
So if you can find that feeling of like, I made my first $1 million, like, what would that feel like, right?
Yeah.
Revel in that feeling alone. Keep working towards it, but make sure that you find that every single day, right? Like, write it down in the morning, like anything.
See, this is the stuff that people, and this is the question I was going to ask you before you even said this, was how do people understand? Like, it sounds like you're talking about being a lot more than doing to me, if I broke it down on like super like American terms, right? And that essence of being is not sitting on your couch and just waiting for, oh, here comes my $1 million.
Exactly.
Or here comes. So these little things that we do to be more of who we are truly meant to be are things like meditation. You're starting to break these down, but like, I really want people to understand, like, it's not just sitting, waiting. Like, I think the law of attraction, stuff like that, gets confused sometimes, or people don't go all the way into it and realize, like, it is a lot about the where we spend our time, or, you know, or how.
Where your attention goes, energy flows.
There you go.
That's a good way to, I think it's Dr. Spence that puts it.
Yeah.
It's like, where
I tell my
attention
kids all the
goes,
time,
your energy flows.
what you focus on grows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. That's kind of it. And it's like, I think the big piece of it too is that, especially for men,
Yeah.
with emotions, is like, we're not taught really how to experience them properly. And then it's kind of just assumed that like women experience them too much.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you kind of this whole consideration of, it's like, well, women right now are kind of living in like a male-dominated society, so they kind of have been more in touch with their masculine, so they're kind of experiencing emotions a little bit as like men do. And it's like, emotions are one of the most powerful things in terms of like, you know, spirituality that we have, right? So that's part of the unlearning too, is you have to learn to control those, right?
Yeah.
And this is kind of interesting because once I thought about this concept, it totally changed the way that I saw it, right? So according to quantum physics, right, is like, and they've kind of proven this, that we live in like a fractal universe. Like everything's like a reflection of a reflection of a reflection of a reflection, right? So something that you see in someone else that you don't like is actually something you don't like about yourself.
Amen.
Right?
Right.
So never judge people, because you're basically judging yourself. And again, that goes back to that idea that nothing's separate. Right?
Yeah.
So anytime someone does something that bothers you, that's a reflection of something within you. And it's your job to discern what that is and deal with it. Because that's when things are going to stop bothering you. Right? Like the people that annoy you are no longer going to annoy you. They're actually going to fade out of your reality because you don't vibrate at the same frequency. Right?
Yep.
And like I've had friends that like I don't see anymore.
Yeah.
That were literally just, you know, you say, you know, like, oh, we're living different lives. Like, well, we're vibrating at different frequencies, right?
Yeah.
Like we just don't align, and that's totally fine.
That's so true.
But, you know, that's that's it, is,
Yeah.
just figure out what it is about something that's bothering you. And that's that first step.